Good morning, everybody. Hope you're having a great day. Today is Wednesday of Holy Week, and in the reading plan today, we're going to be focusing on Matthew chapter 26, verses 6 through 16. It says, "While Jesus was in Bethany in the home of Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume, which she poured on his head as he was reclining at the table. When the disciples saw this, they were indignant. 'Why this waste?' they asked. 'This perfume could have been sold at a high price and the money given to the poor.' Aware of this, Jesus said to them, 'Why are you bothering this woman? She's done a beautiful thing to me. The poor you will always have with you, but you will not always have me. When she poured this perfume on my body, she did it to prepare me for burial. Truly, I tell you, wherever this gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her.' Then one of the 12, the one called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and asked, 'What are you willing to give me if I deliver him over to you?' So they counted out for him 30 pieces of silver, and from then on Judas watched for an opportunity to hand him over." So there's a lot happening in this scene, but I just want to focus our thoughts on one concept, one idea, and that's the concept of waste. What is waste? You see when this woman comes in and she pours the perfume on Jesus' head, the disciples were indignant, they were angry, and the question was, why this waste? So what is it? In its simplest definition, if you give more than what's necessary, it's waste. So if something is worth $10 and you give 50, well, you just wasted $40. So unless you have an understanding of the worth of something, you don't know whether or not you're being wasteful. So why the indignation? Why such an emotional response from the disciples? Well, I think part of it is because this woman comes in and honestly just threatens their male ego. You know, these were the guys that were always arguing about who's going to be the greatest and who's going to be sitting at the right hand of Jesus in heaven. And so this woman comes in and essentially steals the attention of Christ, and they can't stand it. This woman that has not the best of pasts interrupts this dinner, and to make matters worse, Jesus says what she did was beautiful. And so the disciples are just out of their mind. After all the miracles, all the healings, all the teachings, everything the disciples experienced after walking with the Son of God for 3 years, they still didn't get it. They didn't understand. But what didn't they understand? They didn't understand the worth of Jesus. But this woman did. More than God wants us to have the right ministry answers, to say, hey, let's sell this stuff, give money to the poor. He wants us to see him rightly. This lady understood 2 things, basically: the depravity of her sin and the grace of God. And if you see those 2 things rightly, it will break you in a good way. She understood, unlike the disciples, the worth of Christ. And if she would have had a dozen more alabaster jars, it wouldn't have been enough. What's the A.W. Tozer quote? What comes to mind when we think about God is the most important thing about us. I think this story highlights that beautifully, that we could be walking with the Lord for years. We could be serving in ministry for a long time and be doing all the right things, checking all the right boxes, and yet still our hearts, our minds, our eyes don't see the worth of Christ. And so my prayer this morning for us as a body, for my family, for myself, is that we would just see him high and lifted up, see him as who he truly is, and understand how far we were from him when we were in our sin, and how undeserved his love and grace truly are. And I pray that it breaks us in humble adoration.